Hey everyone, it's Richard Metal Fan here, bringing you guys an old school album review. And today we're going to be looking into this album's 20th anniversary, and it's from one of my favorite bands. And as you can see below the title, today we're going to be talking about The World Needs a Hero by Megadeth, the band's ninth album released on May 15th, 2001 through Sanctuary Records. Now, this follows up their previous album, Risk, which obviously, if you've seen my review that I did of it 2 years ago for the 20th anniversary of that, I've said that I thought it was like a big misstep in Megadeth's career because it was around that time Metallica had their success, and then I guess Dave Mustaine said that saw that and wanted to try to emulate that, but he failed miserably. And this album also has a little lineup change. Well, they did a little bit on the previous album, Risk, where they had a new drummer, Jimmy DeGrasso, which I think does a pretty good job on the drums. But then they have a new guitarist on this album, lead guitar player Al Petrelli, which honestly, I'm surprised nobody really talks about like Al or Jimmy at all in Megadeth. I mean, Jimmy DeGrasso's been in a couple other bands, but nobody's really talked about Al. And I honestly think, in my opinion, both Al and Jimmy are like the most underrated members in Megadeth. Like, really, nobody talks about them. And I don't think really anybody really talks about this album in particular. I think it's a pretty underrated Megadeth album. So, without further ado, let's just dive right into this album, track by track. And I honestly think that this album is also, forgot to mention, I think it's also a really great return to form, a return to like the style that Megadeth is known for, thrash. And yeah, and this is pretty much what they should be doing all along. But let's just dive right into this. Now, we start off the album with Disconnect, and I think it's a good way to start this album. Some really great work on the guitars and the bass, and some really awesome drumming and really great lyrics. And then after like the second chorus, David Ellefson goes into like a bass riff for about like 15 seconds, and then Dave and Al join David. And I just love like both the guitar players, here's Dave and Al, have like solos, like especially near the end of the song. But I've heard like better solos from them, but I feel like it overall fits like the whole song. And I just feel like the only little nitpick I have is like near the end it kind of drags on a little bit, but overall great start to this album. Then we move on to the title track of the album, The World Needs a Hero. And then Jimmy just starts off with some drumming on the toms, and then David just comes in and he does it's like a little like funky kind of like jazzy bass line, and then Dave Mustaine comes in, and I just love like especially like 30 seconds, and then the lyrics honestly I feel like could have been better there, but the main thing I feel like that's a little nitpick with the song. Moving on to Motorpsycho. Now this is the only song from what I heard that was released as a single and a video too. You know, instead of like having an intro, it just jumps right into with guitars and so some cool solos by Petrelli and Mustaine after each verses. And I actually think I like Dave's solo better than Al's, and I just think this is pretty much my favorite song on the album. Then we move on to 1000 Times Goodbye, and this song I honestly don't really care for a whole lot, and the intro I feel like is just way too long, and the guitar riffs are boring, and I just think the lyrics are just it talks really about breaking up, which and I just think near the end it just gets worse, and there's like some like conversation I heard from like Dave and his girlfriend, but yeah, I don't really care much for this song. And then we move on to Burning Bridges. Now I think this pretty much redeems itself, and it has some of the best lyrics on this album, or even by Megadeth, next to Motorpsycho, and of course later on we'll talk about Return to Hangar. Yeah, just Burning Bridges is the best song on the album, or one of my personal favorites. It has some great solos, and I think they're a lot better than Disconnect if you ask me. And then we move on to Promises. Now Promises is kind of falls in sort of like the similar vein as 1000 Times Goodbye, but I feel like this song is much better. During the cellos and violins really just fit, and but I also think they could do it without him, but it doesn't like take away or make it bad or whatever. The only song on the album that I feel like I've heard that Dave didn't write himself, then Al sort of like helped write with the lyrics with this one, and I really love like the chorus in the song. It's just really catchy. Next up is Recipe for Hate, Warhorse, which is kind of like a two-part song similar to Holy War's The Punishment Due, Good Morning Black Friday, Let's Rise, Left to Death, stuff from the first couple records. or it starts off very thrashy and has a really great riff, and you kind of want, which sounds a little bit annoying, but you just want it to end after 5 seconds, and then right after you get some more great bass playing from David Ellefson, with Dave not really singing but doing a character voice, kind of like similar to Dread and the Fugitive Mind, a Symphony of Destruction. But then Warhorse, I feel like, is like the better half of this two-part song. It's some excellent solos at the end by both guitarists. Losing My Senses. Now, this song is another song I would skip, similar to 1,000 Times Goodbye, and I try to listen to it to see if it gets better throughout, but I just feel like it kind of irritates me, especially in like the vocal department. Dread and the Fugitive Mind, which I honestly think is another one of my favorite songs from this album, another classic. Some really great lyrics and a good message like behind it, which is like don't steal, and some awesome like riffs and some great drumming and just lyrics, almost everything. The only little nitpick I have with this song, I feel like it could have been better with like Dave's soloing. Then we move on to Silent Scorn. Now, Silent Scorn, I feel like it's just a little mini interlude piece. It's just, which would lead into the next song. It's nothing really fancy, but it has a little trumpet playing somewhere in the middle, and then it leads into the second to last song on the album, Return to Hangar, which is obviously a sequel to Hangar 18, which is from my all-time favorite album, if you probably have guessed it, Rust in Peace. But yeah, I just think that it's a really good way to like have like a sequel song. It just has like the same similar structure. Sure, it also doesn't have like a whole lot of lyrics, and it's just filled with like solos from the original. And I feel like it's probably my favorite Megadeth song on this album. And I really wish like they would play the song more, especially if they were to play Hangar 18, they would just follow up with Return to Hangar. But I just think it can't beat the original, but I feel like both Hangar 18 and Return to Hangar just is worth listening to. And then we get to Win. Now, I honestly think that this is just the worst way to end this album. Now, honestly, if it were up to me, I would have just switched Win with Silent Scorn and just switched the track listing around. But I just think they should have just ended with Return to Hangar. And I feel, but Win is just terrible. It just, I don't know, it just, the lyrics are bad, and Dave isn't even singing in it, and it just sounds just weird, and it's just way too long too. And I just feel like they could have done better without this song. Now, overall, World Needs a Hero by Megadeth is a pretty good album, a good return to form, but there was a little bit of like, this would be the last album they would put out for at least temporarily for a couple years, because there was around the time in 2002, Dave Mustaine had like a little arm injury or something, and something fucked up happened, and he couldn't play guitar really for a little while, and he pretty much broke up Megadeth for a couple years but then they would reform in 2004, and they're still kicking ass to this day. But yeah, this was supposedly around the time 2002 or so that this was the last Megadeth album. So yeah, so if I were to give this album a score, I'm gonna give The World Needs a Hero by Megadeth a 8 out of 10. So yeah, that's my review of the album, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about the album, and I'll see you all in the next video. And as always, keep it metal.